I think we're recording. I think we're live.
Yeah.
Hold on. Do you know what? I have made a mistake, but it's fine. We've not got a local recording on the go, I don't think.
But that should be
But
okay.
that should be okay. Estelle will get over it. Sorry, everyone, that we are late for this. It's totally my fault. I was in the wrong part of London. I thought I was going to get back a lot quicker than I actually was. Welcome to the Murray End. My name's Martin Machado. I'm joined by my cousin across the pond and a very happy Philadelphia Eagles fan, Dominic Machado. We've got a lot to discuss after Sri Lanka got absolutely hammered by the Aussies. We sat here predicting a 2-0 series win. I mean, we just couldn't be any wronger than that, could we, Dom?
Yeah, it was. I thought it would be closer. I think Nick was probably the most confident. Not to throw Nick under the bus in the first minute of the show when he's not here, but I was confident they'd at least put up a good show. I thought that the bowlers would stand a chance at being penetrative. I thought the batters would come to the party, but neither of those things happened. And I think that's what was the most shocking part of it, is that it's as if they didn't turn up for this series. They just were not there. They weren't ready to play, and they got thoroughly outclassed by a very professional Australian outfit.
Let's kind of. I think the first question is, because we have done a show since they lost the first test, is from what you were seeing, or do you feel that there was any or much of an improvement between the first and second test? I mean, I think nominally there was, but my personal take is I was expecting a little bit more the second time around, and I think we kind of just rolled over too easily.
Yeah, there was a little bit of improvement. Like, we can't say there was no improvement at all, but I think the thing that we've seen is squandering good positions, right? There were some times where we put ourselves in position to win matches, and we just weren't able to capitalize, right? So we were batting on the first day, and I think things were kind of going reasonably well, right? Things were going okay, and we were 93 for 1 at one point, right? With Dimuth and Chandi kind of batting well and looking in control. And then we have a slide of basically, we lose 3 wickets there for 30 odd runs. And, this is kind of the engine room. This is where you expect the runs to come from: Angelo, Kamindu, and DDS. And they just struggled. They just struggled to put anything together. And we saw that in the second innings as well, where Kusal Mendes and Angela Matthews were batting, right? They'd kind of come in a situation. It was 5 for 128, and they'd gotten to 5 for 198. Right now they have about a 50-run lead, and there's about 20-25 minutes left till close, and Angelo just plays this ungainly hoik straight to a fielder, and you think to yourself, you win the next 15-20 minutes there of that match, and something different goes on, right? If they're 93 for 1 and they make it 125 or 130 for 1, right? Or you bat out the rest of the day 198 for 5, even if you don't score any runs for the rest of the time, you put yourself in a position where the match can be won, even if you're behind. And so there were those, not just did they play poorly generally, but they had those passages of play where they went from, we're competing in this test match, to now we've put ourselves behind the 8 ball and it's going to require a miracle for us to win.
If you're watching at home or on the tube or on the train or on the bus or wherever, and you want to get involved, leave us comments. We'll bring the comments up on the screen as and when they come in, and if you want to talk about them, we'll also do a bit of a Q&A if there is any questions at the end of the show as well. So please do get involved. If you're watching this or listen to this later on, you can always get in touch with us on social media as well. We're basically across everything at the moment: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're on TikTok. None of us look at it, but we're there. So yeah, get in touch and tell us what you think. I think, Dom, the big questions have to be asked. We will talk about Dimuth's career at some point as well, because we haven't had a chance to talk about it now that it's all done and dusted. Well, at least till the next time we need to qualify for an ODI World Cup. The big questions for me are over the leadership, the senior players, the captaincy, because I think too many times now we see this against Australia twice, see this against South Africa. We saw bits of it when they were in England as well, but I think we were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt then. I think there's too many times that the game starts to drift away and DDS isn't putting in that intensity or changing things up in a way that you think, right, this could change things. This could we could break this partnership. We can get a wicket here. We can kind of really turn the screw and get back into it. And I think for me now, it's happening too frequently that you got to look at it and go, something's got to change here. I don't know. Maybe you want to have a conversation about the kind of wider management around the team as well, because SLC have told us this is the group that they brought the seniors back in to kind of lead us through it and to get us out of these tight situations. At the moment, that's not really happening. They told us this management team were there because they thought they could take Sri Lanka to the next level across all formats. Maybe that might be happening in other formats, but in Test cricket, feels to me in the last 6 months, Sri Lanka going backwards.
Yeah, I think the real sort of litmus test is when you compare DDS as a captain to what Steve Smith was doing. When things weren't going well, Steve Smith was constantly trying things, whether it's changing lines, moving fielders around, putting fielders in non-conventional spots. Whereas it seemed like plan B was just bowl a negative line, right, and try to dry up the runs. And there are some players that might work on. That might work on Ollie Pope or Zach Crawley or someone like that, but it's not going to work on Steve Smith. Right, that's just never a reasonable ploy to someone who scored over 10,000 runs in their career. And there was no sort of thinking, okay, well, what kind of things can we do to throw Australia off their expectations, right? Because a lot of sport is setting a team up to expect something, letting them prepare for it, and then giving them to something just a little bit different so that it makes them guess or second guess. And it's, to me, I think the one thing that's unacceptable is Australia countered with the sweep and the reverse sweep, right? And we sat back here 3 Mondays ago, and I raised the question. I said, Australia is going to play the sweep. We know that's how they're going to play in the subcontinent. We know that's what they feel comfortable with. And we didn't have an answer for that. Right. To me, what you do is, okay, we're going to put 2 fielders at 45 and say, do something other than score off the sweep. And until you prove that, right, force them to play the big shot down the ground, because that at least could lead to a top edge or something like that. Force them to do something different. And we've seen this, as you said, Mark, in England, in South Africa, having good plans. And I think DDS obviously bears a significant amount of responsibility for what's happening on the ground. But I think the management also deserves some blame here. One person, and I will call him out, PL Wijitunga, right? Like, we get guys who are good, naturally good spin bowlers, and we don't see them take any steps forward. They have the same plans. They have the same things. I will say Prabhath, he bowled much better in this test. He moved. We talked about bowling flatter and quicker, and he certainly did that. He had a few deliveries that were near 100 kph. He picked up on that. Nishan Puris also bowled better in that second test, but they should be ready to go from day one, right? Because what else does Prabhath and Nishan Puris have to prepare for? They're preparing for this test series, right? That should be the #1 priority. And when you come in consistently in these first matches and you get blown out of the water, and it tells me that that team is not well prepared, right? When they should absolutely be well prepared. They have a home situation, and it's not enough to just say, okay, we're used to playing in these situations, we should be ready to go. But you should be trying to get every advantage, not just in terms of the pitch is good for us, but we have all the plans. We've sat through, we've thought it out. We've worked out 5 different ways to get out Steve Smith. We've looked at his pattern of dismissals. And they talk about the importance of data and analytics, but I don't see any reflection of data and analytics in the way that they're prepping for these matches. Sorry, I'm getting into uncle mode, but yeah.
No. I think this is one of those days where we've got to go total uncle, right? Like Murali End exists as a community of Sri Lankan cricket fans, right? And maybe wider cricket fans. We exist because we love Sri Lankan cricket, and part of loving it is we want to win, right? There's no point us two sitting here and going, the boys put in a good shift. Isn't it nice? The Aussies turned up. They had a good time. Look, Usman Khawaja and Steve Smith are going, heading back to Australia in the form of their lives suddenly. It's like reality is when this team were coming over, we thought they'd done well and got lucky to win the BGT in home conditions, right? We fancied our team. We thought we were a team that could score runs and get wickets, particularly fancy them in Galle, right? We come away from this series at the end of it thinking and suddenly they've made these Aussie team look like absolute well beaters. We were talking about, right, this is, there's about 5 or 6 players in this Australia side who are very close to the end of their careers. They might not even, if they have a bad series, they might not even make it to the Ashes next summer, right? Yep. That's how the Aussie press are writing it all up. Now, I'm doing Aussie cricket podcast at the end of the day's play, and they're talking like, they're back to kind of late 90s, early noughties Australia again, which suddenly it looks like a team full of well-beaters. I can't blame them for it. It's not their fault.
That we're giving hundreds to everybody, right? We're giving
hundreds to everyone. Yeah. You have 100. You have 100. It's like we've become the Oprah of cricket. You look at the
funny thing is, we talked about Travis Head, and we thought he was going to be the point of difference, right? You control Travis Head, you kind of control the match, but we let everyone who was out of form get back in form. Alex Terry, who has 1 career 100, puts up a 150 against us. And that's the kind of thing that's just unacceptable, right? You have to prey on the weakness, right? These guys are out of form, be at them. Don't give them free runs. Don't allow them to survive. Don't allow them. You just gotta that mentality. And I think this is what in our sort of wildest dreams we'd hope Sanath would instill, that never say die. We're always at you. We're gonna play the way we play, and tough luck to you if you want to cross us. But that mentality wasn't there. I think you tweeted this out. Sri Lankan hospitality, right? Just serving up pies to the opposition, and Sri Lankans don't, they make good other food, but pies isn't even what we specialize in. We were serving them up freely and willingly.
Chicken kottu pies. There's some comments come in. If you're watching at home or wherever you are and you want to have your say, get in touch. We'd love to hear what you've got to say. Ravinder said Sri Lanka just doesn't have the skill to set attacking fields and plans to contain opponents. They always need pitched off of something or batsmen to fail. That's why they're only playing Galle. I'll take the last bit first, right? So I think the Galle thing, there's 2 things that have become a fit, and it's become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Firstly, I think they play 2 matches at Galle because they still lose money hosting test matches. They might not have lost money hosting Australia. I'm not sure. I'll try and find out from people within SLC. I'll try and figure that one out. But they're playing test cricket there because it's cheaper once you set a venue up to have as many days play there as possible for it. The skill thing and the pitch thing, I do think comes into it. I just don't understand what is going on. You're getting absolute tonked all over the place by Alex Carey and Steve Smith. Is no one putting their hand up and saying, let's try something else? Let's do this. What are all these, we know that there's people there who've been involved in winning World Cups. We know that there's people there who, Sanath's there. He's been basically involved in every step of Sri Lankan cricket, taking them from when, before we'd barely won a match to winning games, to winning world tournaments, to where we are now, every step along the way. There are people there who know how to win cricket matches, but for whatever reason, the brain is not powered up. It's frustrating.
And Mark, this is the only generation of cricketers that have ever beaten Australia in a test match. Yeah. Right? And have beaten them in a test series. And they did it in 2016. They did it in 2022. and even, you know, under Sangha and Mahela, right, in the noughties, right, like we couldn't beat Australia at home. And this team had done it, had the formula. And I think it's not fair to say they don't have the skill to set attacking fields. I think, and I don't even think they need to be attacking, but they just need to be um, intent changing, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's the key is that you say, okay, well, we're going to feed you the ball outside off stump. That's where you're gonna have to score, but we're gonna have a packed offside field, right? And I don't think you need to be particularly skillful to do that, right? And if you're a Sri Lankan spinner, if you can't get the ball to land on a spot and you're playing in Galle, you shouldn't be in the side, right? We're not talking, and there are plenty of guys, right, who play in who play in white ball teams. I know it's a very different thing, but if you don't think someone like Dimuth Karunaratne is capable of playing Test cricket, I think that's incorrect. We have plenty of talent. I wonder with the field settings, the uncles, right? You have some guys who are, you know, not the best fielders in the world, and can't really move. And how much does that shape things, right? Like someone can get off for an easy single because you have someone standing at mid on or mid off that's not going to charge in and throw the ball at the stumps.
Sachin said, feels like DDS is not good enough. Irresponsible batting and laid back attitude in the field when captaining. I feel bad kind of slagging DDS off because I quite like him. He seems like quite a good bloke. I think he definitely wants to win. He brings, like, I think he's got a kind of a good energy around him. And I kind of think the things that we're talking about, I do think, you know, we've got to constantly keep asking ourselves, regardless of the format, regardless of how well the team's playing, are the best players, is the best 11 in this on this pitch right now? Have we got the best players who can represent Sri Lanka, win matches on the pitch right now? I'm slightly nervous that maybe DDS isn't really doing enough to try and get like to kind of maintain himself in the side beyond being the captain, because it feels like kind of series and series that his contributions are getting smaller and smaller. I did think in the first match him not being able to bowl was actually quite a big moment, because I think in Galle, when it's not going well, you could really do with as many different people having a throw as possible. But you know, I'm going to reiterate it. I don't think the blame here lies with one person. I think he's the figurehead at the point of this organization. You know, I've just had to see the comment that just says Sunnable. It's they've got to have a serious rethink. There is multiple people on that island involved in cricket, or maybe they're working for other people in other bits of the cricket world, not on the island, who can get a team to win Test cricket matches, right? This is a really interesting comment. I know we've been mixed it up, but the longer I'm on you, the angrier I'm getting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, just one thing about DDS's batting. I just also don't think he's 33. I know he feels comfortable batting at 6, but take that little extra responsibility. You know, if some senior players retire, move up. Count on yourself. Like the 50s are not enough. You know, like we know he can score a beautiful 50. We need the hundreds. We need the big scores. We need the 150s. We need the 200s. And honestly, I think, you know, if we'll talk about the seniors, but I wouldn't be opposed to him moving up to 4 and bringing in some of the younger players to take those other slots.
I want to just bring this comment on from Dinner. Do you guys think this World Test Championship cycle has been an improvement or decline from the last? This is an absolutely superb question, right? Because if you'd asked us to this before we went to South Africa, I would have said definitely getting better, right? We've had a disastrous home series against Australia. We had arguably an even more disastrous away series against South Africa. And actually, now when you think about it, you're like, we beat New Zealand at home. And I know New Zealand are a pretty decent cricket outfit, but we beat them in Galle. We kind of did what we needed to do. But I wonder if you took out kind of certain performances from that, and you're like, well, how much have we improved as a team? Not really much, right? I still think, you know, when it comes to scoring runs, we're reliant basically on 3 players picking up runs at the moment. Patham, Kamindu, and Kusal. If those 3 aren't scoring us runs in Test cricket, then you kind of look about and you're like, right, the rest of them, I kind of feel the rest of our so-called batters have about 120, 130 runs between them. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Chandy as well.
Chandy,
Chandy's been
yeah.
reasonably
I was going to say Chandy has been
consistent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think you're right, Mark. I think going into this South Africa series, I was definitely thinking, okay, these guys are playing well. You know, you win in England, which is a big accomplishment for any Sri Lankan side. You know, winning one match in England is a big win. And, you know, you beat not just beat New Zealand at home, but you thump them, right? Pretty seriously. And that's what you want to see from a test side, that when you're at home in your home conditions, you're dominant and that you can be competitive when you're abroad. And even in South Africa, they gave a pretty good accounting of themselves in the second test. They batted better than they did at home, honestly. And it was a big step back. And I think it tells you about the mentality, the approach that they're taking towards test cricket, instead of building and saying, okay, well, look, let's see what we got here and let's see how we can build and change things. And, you know, I think the big thing that changed is you didn't get those sort of magical innings from Kamindu and Patham, right? Patham at the Oval, right? Kamindu multiple times last year. And the batting unit has, you know, did nothing without them, right? Without those special performances. And when you have guys, 4 guys in that lineup who are 33 plus, DDS, Angelo, Dimuth, and Chandi, right? And you're not looking at those guys as, if we were to win this game, this guy's going to play a big innings, right? You know they're going to chip in a little bit, score 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. But if you're not looking at those guys who are taking up the primo positions in your lineup, you know, opener 3, 4, 6, that's just not acceptable, right? But I think part of it is realizing now we to answer the question, we have to move on. We you know, we reached kind of where we could with these players, and now we see their limitations, and it doesn't make sense to continue on with some of them anymore. And kind of, you know, I pat Dimuth on the back. He's always been a team man, and he was in great form till basically the beginning of 2024. He had one bad year, and he said, okay, I'm ready to call time on it. And I respect that. I respect him being able to say, I'm just not good enough anymore.
The other thing we should say about Dimuth is, and we'll get onto him a little bit in more depth slightly later on, but he did want to go earlier, right? He's been talked out of. He just talked out about retiring from the captaincy. Talked out retiring from the team. I mean, I saw somebody wrote an article, can't remember who it was, saying, you know, he wasn't the hero we wanted, but he was the hero we needed, and that's definitely that was the case. We'll talk about him a little bit more later on. Just another comment that's coming through from Dimuth that I think was worth talking about. I wonder how much of our performance against Australia was dictated by the fact that we were no longer in contention for the World Test Championship final. I just think that's just almost like a moot comment, right? Because, I mean, they're professional cricketers. They're getting paid wages. They're getting paid handsomely by, you know, but not just by Sri Lankan standards, but global standards. They're there to win cricket games. Test cricket, you can't have our players coming out and say, "Oh, we're only playing so few games in this format this year," and then come out and put performances like that on, us, as fans, how are we meant to react to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's Australia, right? If you can't get up for playing Australia at home, right, then what are you getting up for, right? And again, maybe it talks about the seniors. Maybe they've lost their hunger at some point to say, like, each performance has to be the best thing that I got. And it's sad. I saw an article on Cricket Info. I didn't read it because I'm sure I know what it said, but Ian Chappell wrote, this was a bad advert for Test cricket. So you know, and it was going the other way, where everyone, like, the previous 6 months was saying, "Oh, Sri Lanka playing well is so good for Test cricket." One bad series, and I think that's what people don't understand. Every time we're on the field, we're being judged as to whether we're good enough to be part of that special group that plays Test cricket. They're looking for any pretext to kick us out of that special group, and I think playing with that chip on the shoulder, right, that's kind of been emblematic of Sri Lankan cricket history and its greatness, is that they don't think we can compete, but we're going to show them that we can win, that we can win despite all the differences, all the things that people think. And losing that and losing sight of that is I'm going to use the word unforgivable, but it's probably not unforgivable, but you cannot turn you never want to see your team turn up for a premier match and just not play. It doesn't matter the circumstances. There's that personal pride that, as you said, Mark, I'm a professional. Like, you know, look, even if you're being totally individualistic, I'm an individual. I want to score runs. I want to get my record to be better, right? Any of those things. But
The other thing I will kind of add to what you're saying there is, I've gone complete full circle about Test cricket, right? I think not that long ago, kind of pre the England series, I was like, I don't think there's any point in Sri Lanka playing Test cricket because people aren't playing us enough. People don't, you know, we never get more than 2 or 3 Test series. You know, teams aren't coming over. We're not doing it, so it's going to be really difficult for us to put together a good side. But actually, there's 2 things I've worked out last 6 months. Sri Lanka do play about as much Test cricket as everyone apart from the big 3. Secondly, everyone else in cricket world, apart from maybe India and Pakistan and the other kind of Asian countries, has got a real crisis about where their next batch of red ball players are coming from, right? Because there's not that as much talent in Australia and in England as there is in South Asian countries. In Sri Lanka, there is so much cricket played, there is so much talent being played that we are proving, or have had moments where it looks like, I mean, I'm going back to the kind of pre-South Africa series now, where it looks like we could have a really good white ball squad and a really good red ball squad, and they wouldn't, and you could run them almost simultaneously, right? The decision you've got to make is,
right,
where do you put Patton? Where do you put Kamindu? I think you probably split them up. Where do you put Kusal? He's definitely a white ball player, right? And obviously Asita, I would say, is definitely a red ball player, right? There's some players where you're like, you'd want to pick them for every format, right? But we could put out a fairly, or it looked like at one point, you could put out a fairly good red ball squad without any of the players that you'd want to have, you know, any of the more white ball specialists.
yeah,
Which in other parts of the world, they are absolutely petrified about how they're going to be able to do that. Well, I think in Sri Lanka, there's talent and there's depth there that not many other places in the world have. But yet we just aren't able to somehow kind of harness that into creating a good team. I just like,
you know, Mark, I'm gonna add, as you said, I'm feeling the same way. The more and more we talk about it, the more frustrated and angry I'm getting. But I think some of the seniors have lost that fire to prove themselves, right? And we see how many guys, right? Like we saw what Kamindu did when he came into the team, Potham did when he came back into the team. Those are the types of talents that are being sidelined. We've talked about Basindo Surya Bandara. We talked about guys like Nipun Dhanajaya. We talked about Pawan Ratnayaka. Those guys are itching to make their debut, right? And if our players, our senior players, are going to be okay with getting 20s and 30s, and then just saying, "Oh yeah, we batted poorly. We need to score more runs." That's unacceptable. We have, you're right. We have the talent. We have the depth. Get the guys who are hungry to get in there and play, and let them make their names for themselves.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, and you know, we talk about this a lot. If you're not subscribed, and if you're just coming across them early, and then please do hit the subscribe button on our Cricket Smash channel. We talk about Sri Lankan cricket a lot. Part of the thing is, Dom, is that you can't just drop these guys in and expect them right centuries from the get go. Right, you've got to give them time to kind of figure out playing Test cricket and go, right, playing first class cricket in Sri Lanka is good. playing a team cricket for Sri Lanka is good, but now you're facing Nathan Lyon, or now you're going to go get Steve Smith out. Now you've got Mitchell Stark running at you. Like, this is a whole nother level, right? Suddenly there's cameras everywhere. People are following you on social media. There's another level that you've got to get to. I think there's a few players in the squad. We've talked about this on this channel fairly consistently the last 6 months. So you're like, right, what is the right time for them to leave? But I think at this point, the moment in which it looked clear that we weren't going to get to the World Test Championship final, they should have taken those players out and be like, they're not going to be around in 2 years, right? We are going to make the decision to go, actually, at this point, you are holding someone's place. You are taking an opportunity away from someone. You are not going to be around in a year's time scoring centuries, because at the moment you're scoring 30s. Like, you ain't suddenly coming back into it, right? Everyone who watches this team can see the players whose eyes have gone, and can see the players who just aren't putting in the performances that they were able to put in, not even like 2-3 years ago, but even a year ago, or are just totally different players to the players that came in when they started to play 3 decades ago in 2009.
And they're not immortal, right? That's the thing, is like, in sport, you don't get to write your sign off. Like, that should never be the case. When part of the cruelty of it, and what makes it so fascinating, is you don't get to write your own story. When it's time to go, it's time to go, and you don't get to choose that. But there is, and here we might lean into a cultural explanation, the respect for experience, the respect for seniors. Do they really need that?
It's too much respect, too much. The game evolves, right? The game evolves super quickly. Probably, like, I don't know enough about American sports, but of the sports I follow, I don't think any game moves as quickly tactically as cricket does. Rugby moves quite quickly, but cricket, I mean, it's like a totally different sport to what we were playing, to what was being played 20 years ago, right? 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Look at baseball. They've come and kind of, they've totally changed the way England play cricket. And the way they are trying to identify players is totally different. I'm not saying Sri Lanka should learn from that, by the way. I mean, by and large, I would say basketball's a bit of a failure for what it's trying to achieve, which is to win cricket games. We're going to go on and pay tribute to Dimuth. There's a lot more comments come in. If you're watching, if you want to say something about this is your time. Put your comment in. I'll bring them up if they're good, or if you haven't. A lot of comments end up getting repeated. So please don't be offended if your comment doesn't end up over here.
Do you mind if I address one? This is from Chamindra Hetinarachi. They talk about dropping Lahiru Udara without giving him a chance, right? And he'd scored a double century for SSC. And he's now 31. He's been on the outskirts of the test squad for 6 years now, 5-6 years. And they released him from the squad. It just doesn't, that's the kind of thing that's frustrating, is there are guys who have that skill and who should be playing. And it's just it's immensely frustrating when they're brought in and around the squad, and then you're like, well, we don't really need them. Just kind of like a side note to this, Chaminda Wickramasinghe was dropped from the ODI squad, and it's just like, why are we, you don't treat talent like that. There are plenty of other teams in the world that would give their left arms for those kind of talented players, and we treat them as second-class citizens.
What we aren't privy to, and I'm trying to play devil's avocado here. What we aren't privy to is what the conversation is between the drop players and the management, the drop players and the selectors, the drop players, but I always think when you see a squad that is constantly in flux and constantly changing, my thought is always it's because the people putting the squad together, the selectors, and like, I think the one thing we do know is that we know that Sanath has a lot of influence over who's in the team. Basically, he effectively picks the squad, even though obviously there is an actual selection committee. But I think it's fair to say he picks the squad at this point. So he's getting what he wants out of it. I think it's interesting, right? Because we're going to have to take the white ball team out of it because they've had some incredible results recently. But what I want to see is consistency, and what I want to see is, right, are we building towards something? I mean, at any point since 2015, you basically could have had the conversation me and you have had in the last 35 minutes, just dropped it into Sri Lankan cricket. Like, it's the same. We're making the same mistakes over and over and over and over
the
again.
show is cyclical. Like every 3 months, we have to have this conversation. And then we're like, oh, things are getting a little bit better. And then reset. And, you know, I think that's there. I think I will say, I think there are some players who are there now who are committed really, truly to getting better. Patham Nissanka, we've called him out so many times. He's committed. He didn't have a great series, to be honest, but we see a player who's committed to getting better, committed to doing all the things. Players like Mahesh Theekshana, right? Always improving, always getting better. And I think that hunger, that mentality from the younger players that we see is something that we just need to scale up. And the sooner we can get those players in and around the squad, more of those types of players in and around the squad, the sooner we'll get changes to what actually has to happen. And someone like Kusal Mendes, right? He's really kind of become consistent over these last few years. You've seen him take his game to maybe not a new level, but take that talent and apply it consistently.
I just hope people listening aren't thinking these uncles have just got angry for the sake of getting angry. We're not. We're there because we love it, man. We love the boys so much. We just want the team to win. And the frustrating thing, I think I can speak for you here, Dom, is that we know we got the talent. We know we've got everything. It's just we're sticking it in the pan and it's coming out all wrong, isn't it? It's like we're overcooking it. We're not putting the coconut milk in when we should do. Like, we're not giving it time to breathe. I don't know what's going on. Should we get through some more of these comments? Please do hit subscribe if you're watching or wherever you're listening to us. Sachin has said, what do you guys think about including 2 or 3 fast bowlers in our playing 11 while providing a good test cricketing pitches in Sri Lanka in upcoming games? Season are good wicket takers. I think the story of Sri Lankan men's cricket for the last 12 months or the last 18 months actually is the emergence of so many good fast bowlers, to the point where I'm thinking now for the first time we've got like kind of 4th or 5th choice fast bowler in our red ball setup. Is a pretty decent,
not bad,
standard, where that for a very, very, very long time I don't think has ever been the case, right, Dom?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. We have more depth in our red ball and our white ball fast bowling departments than we have ever had. Like, I think that's fair to say. And I think in terms of Sachin's point here, you get some strategic diversity if you actually lean into that and say play 2 fast bowlers, 2 spinners. You can do more things, right? You can say, okay, now it's time for a 3 over bumper spell. And I think that's where we've seen DDS be a good captain, is when he has multiple options, where as opposed to, okay, we're a GALLE, we're just going to keep on rolling and throwing Prabhath at you, right? Forcing that decision to be made to say, okay, like, how are we going to manage this? What do we have at our disposal? And I think I don't think it's a bad decision. I think the question of what that 3rd spinner is doing in terms of providing a point of difference is also really, like, is a 3rd spinner better than having Lahira Kumara and Asitha Fernando come in for kind of quick bursts, quick spells to kind of get at that Australian unit? I thought it was kind of unfair that Asitha was sidelined for this 2nd test because he didn't really get a chance to bowl in the 1st test. They didn't really give him the opportunity to say, okay, old ball, let's try some reverse. You saw how Australia used Mitchell Starc so effectively, and I'm not claiming that Asitha is the caliber of bowler of Mitchell Starc, but he has a lot of tools in his tool shed. He's got a good bumper. He can swing the ball. He can reverse swing the ball. He's got a good Yorker. Use that to your advantage, and maybe kind of force the hand by playing 2 or 3 seamers.
We've got our strengths. We've got to lean into it, right? We've got to lean into it. But you know what will happen? They'll bring someone on. They won't get any wickets, and never see them ever again. They'll just reappear on Instagram, living and playing good cricket,
sitting in a hot
good
tub
level
at
of
the Trade
cricket.
Center.
Yeah, or in Australia. I was going to say. That's what happens. Udara's come in with something. Is there any way to teach them good English and feed them the real-time commentary audio? So I think most of the players actually speak quite good English.
In the test squad, certainly, right? Like all the seniors speak pretty good English, right? Like Dimuth, Chandi, Angie, and DDS. They're all pretty good English speakers, so we know they should be able to understand.
I mean, maybe we just hook them up with a singular commentary. I mean, build them all up, get them going. That might work for some of them. The thing is, Udara, it's an interesting idea, but see, this is another kind of. I know Udara's kind of written this kind of tongue in cheek, right? But they're constantly getting notes and stuff from the brain center inside the pavilion when they're out bowling. I'm just like, what are they saying? What are they saying? Keep making those pies, lads. Keep doing exactly the same thing. They'll definitely come back for more. Steve Smith is definitely coming back to Sri Lanka, lads.
Yeah. Like that's going to be his retirement. Like Mike Hussey, it's going to be his retirement tour.
Yeah. What are they being told? I mean, I don't think helping them. I wonder if the other issue might be is there's too many voices and there's no clear vision. Like maybe I like obviously we don't know. We're just as frustrated as everyone else. Dom, shall we get back and talk about Dimuth because I think his retirement is quite a moment for Sri Lankan cricket because he's when we come to, or you know, occasionally every now and again we do a big old chat about who the greats of Sri Lankan cricket are. In my opinion, he's definitely in that pantheon. But one of the things that people have been discussing since he's announced his retirement is kind of he's like the boring man of Sri Lankan cricket, and I think that's a little bit unfair on him, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think he's different than any other cricketer we've had. I don't think that makes him boring. He is one of those guys who was numbers driven, right? I remember reading Andrew Fidel Fernando's like excellent article about how he would set up goals for himself and he'd chase them down and follow them down, and he was just a run machine. And I think people haven't, you know, they point out, oh yeah, he's kind of a normal guy. He was a good opening batter. I just want to be clear. There is no question that in the post-Sangha Mahela era, he is our best batter by far. And I don't even think it's close. He scored 1,000 more test runs in that period than any other batter. He's won 4 Player of the Series awards in test match cricket in that point. Only 2 Sri Lankans have won more, Murali and Herath. That's the same as Aravinda. That's the same as Sangakkara. In terms of batters, there have been no batters that have won more Player of the Series awards in Test cricket than him. He played, I think he was Mr. Consistency in a time where there was no consistency in Sri Lankan cricket. He played, he had 79 innings without a duck, 79 consecutive innings without a duck between 2019 and 2025. He had that run in 2021, I think, where he scored 6 consecutive 50s. He was a guy who we could count on to deliver runs when we needed it the most. Other guys might have been flashy and scored big innings, but he was the guy who was constantly turning out runs in the toughest position in the entire batting lineup, right? Opening the batting in an era that's been friendly to bowlers. We all know he's scored the most runs since 2015 among openers. He has been magnificent. He is the guy who's put this side, right, on his back and carried him. I can remember that match against South Africa where he carried his bat. He scored like 158 out of our 230 runs. He outscored, I think, South Africa in that match, to be honest. Yes, the innings against New Zealand, against Bolton Southey, was amazing. And admittedly, he struggled a little bit overseas, but at home, again, over that post Sunga and Mihala period, he has scored 1,000 more runs at home than any other bat. He averages over 50. He has been a true match winner. He is our greatest batter since their retirement. And I think it's time that he gets his due. And I think he also was a team man. He always put up his hand. He never said, I want to bat in a cushy position. He always took he took the new ball. He took, he played in the hardest places, and he was always there, always ready to play. And I can't thank him enough. In my mind, he's Sri Lanka's greatest ever opener. Some people might have an argument with that, but I don't think there's an argument in that he is our greatest batter since the retirement of those two giants.
So in a cricket culture that is famed for its innovators and for its freaks, it's easy to look at him as a boring orthodox player. But actually, when you look at the chaos that he kind of inherits into teams that he is part of and at points the captain of, I actually think he is yet another example of a freakish, innovative Sri Lankan player. In fact, in some ways, he's the best example of it, because when everything in Sri Lankan cricket is on fire, absolutely everything, he's able to kind of cut out the noise and just continue on and just plod on and bat along. And I think when I think about his career, and I'm a 1,000,000% sure he'd think differently of it. What I'm angry about for him is that SLC made him stay on, because he knew when he had to go, and he knew he wanted to leave in a high, and he knew that he just wasn't going to be quite at that exceptional level that he was at for about 6 or 7 years, I think. And I'm just gutted for him that they made him just cling on and stick about for this last cycle, because he definitely didn't want to be there. But my gosh, we're gonna miss him. It's strange because we were missing him while he was still in the side. But we were missing him, right?
So to give you a stat again, I've been looking into this. So he scored, I think, 6,200 runs since 2015 as an opener. Do you want to guess how many the second most Sri Lankan for Sri Lankan openers? How much is second to Dimuth?
Since 2015,
so a decade.
2015. Okay, so I reckon Patton's got about 700 runs as an opener.
That's pretty close. He's not the highest. He's at there's Kaushal Silva and Lahiro Tirumana have about 800 runs. So he's scored 8 times more runs than any partners, and he's had countless partners. He has had Oshada Fernando. He's had Kaushal Silva. He's had Pathum Nissanka in multiple phases of his career. He's had Kusal Pereira. He's had Kusal Mendes open with him. He's had so many different. He's had Danushka Gunatilaka open with him in Test cricket. He's had so many different opening partners, and he was that model of consistency when the only thing consistent about his partners was that they were going to change nearly every match and they weren't going to score runs. And I remember, Mark, you probably remember this, watching him in 2016 when he toured England, and I was like, he's a decent player, but I don't ever think he's going to amount to that much, right? I thought he and Kaushal Silva were roughly equivalent players, and just through hard work, through desire to score runs, he did it, right? So often we talk about Sri Lankan players having exceptional talent. He's not a guy, even in his school side, he was like the 4th best cricketer in his school side. Yet he comes out and you look at it at the end of the career, he's the guy that we're going to remember, and we're going to miss him so much. We're going to miss his solidity so much, and his willingness to take on all challenges that were thrown at him.
In my rugby club, we always say when someone makes their debut, we're like, the easy part is getting the shirt. The
Yeah,
hard part is staying in the shirt, right? And what you're meant to do, and what we're frustrated, as we've been talking about for the last almost hour, is there's a lot of people, or there's some people who get the shirt and they think that's the hard part,
yeah,
like the easy part. But Dimuth really understood that once you're in the shirt, you've got to improve. You've got to
yeah,
slowly get better. You've got to figure out where your weaknesses are. You got to work on it. You've got to try and be the best player you can be. And sometimes, in Sri Lanka, we've been so blessed with, you
yeah,
look at the last 20, 30 years, right? Some of the players we've had come through. And the best ones are the ones who really understand that. Dimuth
right,
really got it, right?
yeah, yep,
And I've been so happy for him. The amount of plaudits that I've seen people from all across the cricket universe and the cricket spectrum play to him over the last week or so since we found out that he was retired. We did obviously on this show have to, I should say, we had to can a few of our clips from dissing some of the, not just him, but some of the other senior players
yeah,
from the first test.
yeah,
But yeah, it's big boots to fill, isn't it?
yeah. And
Um,
he knew when to go too. I think you were saying, it's not just getting the shirt, but it's staying in the shirt and always improving. And I think also knowing when to hang up the shirt. It's the hardest thing to figure out. And I think he knew when. And congrats to him on a great career. We'll have to do next time we get Nick on, we'll have to ask him his official SLC all-time Test 11, whether Dimuth is one of the two openers. For me, it's no question, but
I think that's a big old debate. Get a round table going. That'd be brilliant. I think we'd
yeah.
all love to see that, wouldn't we? Sachin's asked any long-term replacements for Dimuth. Sachin, it's Sri Lanka cricket. They're gonna. It works basically like Pop Idol. It's batter idol, right? They're gonna next 20 test matches. Expect Patham to have 20 different partners. I mean, if you saw Sharda in that first test, I mean, I never felt worse for someone watching him after those LBW, absolute plum LBWs to be reviewed. And that was just a man who is panicked and wants to keep his place. Right. Dom, we'll get on to the Dasun Shanaka story. One last question has come in before that we will not be able to answer, but we'll try. From Rare Clips, he said, any idea when Sri Lanka tour in Australia beyond 2027 cycle last tour 2019? Rare Clips, I'll be honest with you, we, as far as I'm aware, unless Dom's got some information, we have no idea. No one seems to tell us anything. What I do know is in Australia, no one seems to know. They know that England's are coming this summer, but no one knows who's coming next summer. So, as in Christmas 2026. So I'd love it if my dream, one of my many dreams in life, would be to watch Sri Lanka at Boxing Day at the MCG. I mean, it could be one of those things where we see a test end in record time within a day. But I'd love to be there. I'd love to see it. It'd be one of those great moments for Sri Lanka cricket, because I don't think we've had a Boxing Day test since 1995. Is that the last time, possibly?
Did they have one in the end of the noughties or early 2000 or early 2010s? I can't remember. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about those tours.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, I think Australia, in terms of the big three, is the one that's most likely to give a fair shake to. I mean, India is as well to touring sides. Like, I think Australia is going to the Windies, and they're playing a 3-test series in the West Indies. So I think if it's there, they'll give them a chance. They'll give them a chance to. So that's my thought, is that Australia would welcome it, but I think we've got to continue to play well in order to get that spot.
Someone's just written in saying that apparently they played the Boxing Day test in 2012. I can't.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that might be right. Or 2011. Yeah. whatever that tour was.
Oh, that is right. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Sri Lanka.
They played I
Australia.
think they played a 3 test series then. At that point,
Yeah, Australia won by the innings and 201 runs. Yeah, I probably had to get that out of my mind. Sorry about that, Reckless. But yeah, I'd love to see them. Yeah, I'd love to see them back there doing it again on Boxing Day. That'd be amazing. Yeah. It's been a long time, isn't it? 13 years
13
already.
Years, yeah.
Dom, Dasun Shanaka, he's in trouble again for doing the old Phil Collins.
Yeah. So apparently he's in trouble because he didn't inform them that after he went back to kind of play for SSC and save them from relegation, that he was going to go back to the ILT20 and play that day. And they're a little bit upset with him. And apparently, I don't really understand what kind of sanctions. And to be honest, I don't have a problem with it. If he wants to go do his duty to the side and then come back and play a match because he is getting paid oodles of money to do it, I totally get it. I mean, part of often it's said the player's best ability is their availability, right? And especially in these T20 leagues, if you're showing that you can show up and play, teams are going to pick you, right? But if you're not, then teams are going to say, and this has been a problem with Sri Lankan players before, where the reason why they weren't picked is not because of a lack of talent or anything like that, but it's just simply because they aren't available. And I'm all for Shanaka going and doing what he needs to do to help his team. We saw poor Jimmy Neesham, where he was in the SAT 20. He got signed for the BPL final, and then they sat him out for the BPL final. So it's not an easy life being an itinerant cricketer. And I just don't get why they're so harsh on him. I think there might be a little bit of a vendetta between the current board and Shanaka for some reason or another, but those are my thoughts on it. What do you think, Mark?
I mean, I think it's a bit pathetic from the board, really. I mean, firstly, I should say, if you don't know the Phil Collins reference, it's because during Live Aid, he played both London and Philadelphia using Concorde. Yeah. So he managed to play across the Atlantic in like a 12-hour period or something. But I think it's a bit pathetic, to be honest. I think professional cricketers have a shortish career where to earn, so they've got to kind of front load all their money in their lives, basically, by trying to earn as much for it as possible. I also think, I know SLC do have quite a pivotal part in terms of developing players, but once a player's kind of developed, they shouldn't really stand the player earning more money. I know there's a situation where SLC have basically stopped Sri Lankan players going to the Big Bash, which is really odd. But it kind of makes sense on the basis that the Big Bash seems to take about 4 years to finish. So they're like, right, we can't let our players go off and play for that long. They need to do other things. I know the players are contracted to SLC, but you also don't forget that when they get assigned to these different leagues, to go play franchise leagues, SLC get a percentage, normally about 10% off that fee as well. So I mean, it's not like he's leaving them high and dry. Also, the other thing I think is a bit weird is that he's not. It doesn't harm his commitments to the national side. There's no white ball cricket that he needs to be, or squads or anything that he needs to be part of. And it also
weird that SLC is getting involved, right? If SSC has questions or they don't like that, he's a contracted player. They can have a discussion with him. But why SLC should be involved? Because
I'd imagine
they signed the NOC for him, right? No,
I'd also imagine that he's probably been played more by Delhi Capitals than he would, Dubai Capitals than he was by SSC. So, it's just a weird power thing, right? Sometimes when in Sri Lanka, I think there's this whole kind of a constant kind of undercurrent of a power struggle and people trying to control other people, and it's weird. Just stop doing it. Let people be their best selves. Let people just go out and do what they want to do, as long as it doesn't mean harming people. If they want to play cricket, just let them play cricket, right? It's another weird scenario with headlines that Sri Lankan cricket don't need, basically. But maybe there's something in it that we've misunderstood, and if that is the case, then we put our hands up, tell us what it is, anyone from SLC. I listen to anyone. I've always got time for you. I want to know. Dom, should we leave it there? I think we've kind of been through.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Everything. Almost exactly an hour. If you're watching or listening, and if you missed the beginning, then go back and watch the beginning of it. Leave us your comments. We're like me, Don, Estelle, Nick. We're always looking at them through the week, so we love to hear from you. We'll be back possibly same time next week. I'm not sure. On Monday next week, talking through everything that's going on with Sri Lankan cricket. We've got some ODIs to look forward to. We didn't even get to the ODI squad. That's fine. We'll just pick it up next week once we've kind of figured out what the results are going to be. Right, I think actually next week might be the Monday is the last ODI.
It's the last, yeah, right. It's it's the 12th and the 4th. Oh no. So they're Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah. Oh, so we'll have a result by then. I've totally lied.
Yeah. If something remarkable happens, you can probably expect us to be on the horn here and
oh yeah. If we win in sparkling style, then we'll do an emergency pod. Or if somebody does something extraordinary, if someone gets a 10 for or something like that. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Tell all your friends about us. We're the Marillion. Be back soon. Bye.